The only dog video you need to believe in miracles. The morning Sarah Mitchell found herself trapped beneath the twisted metal of her overturned car, she had already given up hope. Blood trickled down her forehead as she lay pinned against the driver's seat, her legs crushed beneath the dashboard. The remote mountain road stretched empty in both directions. No cell service, no passing cars. Just the sound of her own labored breathing and the distant cry of a hawk circling overhead. But Sarah wasn't alone. 50 yards away, behind a cluster of pine trees, a dog watched. Not just any dog, but a German shepherd mix with one clouded eye and ribs that showed through his matted coat. He had been surviving on scraps and rainwater for weeks, ever since his owner abandoned him at a rest stop 3 counties over. The locals called him Ghost because he appeared and disappeared like morning mist, always just beyond reach. Ghost tilted his head at the sound of Sarah's weak cries for help. Something deep in his chest stirred. A memory, perhaps, of a time when humans meant safety instead of abandonment. He took a tentative step forward, then another, until he stood at the edge of the road. Sarah's eyes fluttered open and met his gaze. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please help me." The dog's world had been one of hunger and cold nights, of dodging animal control and scrounging for food in dumpsters. He had learned to trust no one, to rely only on his own instincts for survival. Yet something in Sarah's voice cut through years of learned wariness. She wasn't trying to catch him or hurt him. She was simply asking for help, human to creature, in the most honest way possible. Ghost approached the wreckage slowly, his nose twitching at the scent of gasoline and blood. Sarah's car had rolled down a steep embankment during the early morning fog, coming to rest against a massive boulder that prevented it from tumbling further into the ravine. The impact had been severe enough to trap her completely, but not severe enough to kill her immediately. "Good boy," Sarah managed, though she wasn't sure if the dog could hear her. "Such a good boy." Ghost circled the car, assessing the situation with the intelligence that had kept him alive on the streets. The driver's side door was crumpled shut, but the passenger door hung open at an odd angle. He could smell Sarah's fear and pain, but also something else. Determination. This human wasn't giving up, and neither would he. The dog began to dig. Not at random, but with purpose, clearing away rocks and debris from around the car. His paws bled against the sharp stones, but he didn't stop. For the first time in months, Ghost had found something worth fighting for. Sarah watched in amazement as the stray dog worked tirelessly to free her. She had been a veterinarian before the accident, before the divorce, before she had decided to drive up to the mountains to think about her life. She recognized the signs of a dog who had been neglected, possibly abused, yet here he was, showing her more loyalty than she had experienced from most humans. Hours passed, the sun climbed higher, and Sarah's condition worsened. Her vision blurred, and she drifted in and out of consciousness. But every time she opened her eyes, Ghost was there. Still digging, still trying. He had managed to clear a path to the passenger door, but it wasn't enough. The car was too heavy, the angle too steep. That's when Ghost disappeared. Sarah's heart sank as she watched the dog bound away through the trees. She understood. He had tried his best, but this was beyond what any animal could accomplish. She closed her eyes and prepared for the inevitable, grateful that her last moments had been spent in the company of such a noble creature. But Ghost hadn't abandoned her. He had gone for help. 20 minutes later, Sarah heard voices. Human voices, getting closer. She forced her eyes open and saw Ghost leading a group of hikers directly to her location. The dog was barking, something she hadn't heard him do before, his tail wagging frantically as he guided the rescue party to the crash site. "My God!" one of the hikers exclaimed. "How long have you been here?" "The dog," Sarah whispered. "He stayed with me. He went to get you." The hikers looked at Ghost with new respect. This wasn't just a stray dog who had stumbled upon an accident. This was a dog who had made a choice, who had understood that Sarah needed help beyond what he could provide, and who had risked exposing himself to strangers to save her life. The rescue took 4 hours. Emergency crews had to be called in with specialized equipment to extract Sarah from the wreckage. Throughout the entire process, Ghost remained nearby, watching protectively as the humans worked to free his new friend. He refused all offers of food or water, his attention focused solely on Sarah. As the paramedics loaded Sarah onto the helicopter, she called out to Ghost. "Come here, boy, come with me." But Ghost backed away, his instincts still telling him to avoid human contact. He had done what he needed to do, fulfilled some ancient contract between his species and hers. Now it was time to disappear back into the woods, back to his solitary existence. Sarah's heart broke as she watched him retreat. She had survived, but she was losing the dog who had saved her life. That's when the miracle truly began. Dr. James Chen, one of the paramedics, had been watching the entire interaction. He had seen Ghost's dedication, his intelligence, his unwavering loyalty to a stranger. As the helicopter prepared to take off, Dr. Chen made a decision that would change everything. "Wait," he told the pilot. He walked over to where Ghost stood at the tree line, moving slowly and keeping his hands visible. "You're not going back to the woods, are you, boy?" Ghost's tail gave the slightest wag, betraying his desire for human connection despite his fears. Dr. Chen knelt down and extended his hand. "Sarah's going to need a therapy dog during her recovery. Someone who understands what she's been through. Someone who saved her life once and might need to save it again." Ghost approached cautiously, then pressed his nose against Dr. Chen's palm. For the first time in months, the dog allowed himself to be touched by human hands. 3 months later, Sarah stood in her backyard, watching Ghost play with a tennis ball. The dog had filled out beautifully under her care, his coat now shiny and healthy, his clouded eye giving him a distinguished, wise appearance. Her own recovery had been long and difficult, but Ghost had been there every step of the way, providing comfort during the painful physical therapy sessions and joy during the dark moments when depression threatened to overwhelm her. But the real miracle wasn't Ghost's transformation or even Sarah's recovery. It was what they had discovered during Ghost's veterinary examination. Sarah had been right about Ghost being abandoned, but she had been wrong about who had abandoned him. The microchip revealed that Ghost's original name was Max, and he had belonged to an elderly man named Robert Chen, Dr. James Chen's father. Robert had died 6 months earlier, and in the confusion of settling his estate, Max had been accidentally left at a rest stop during the family's move. Dr. Chen had been searching for his father's dog ever since, putting up flyers and checking every shelter in a 3-state radius. The dog who had saved Sarah's life was the same dog Dr. Chen had been desperately trying to find. The same dog who had been waiting, surviving, hoping for a family to claim him again. The reunion was emotional. Dr. Chen wept as he held Max, apologizing over and over for the months of separation. But when he looked at Sarah, he saw something that made him pause. "He saved you," Dr. Chen said quietly. "But I think maybe you saved him too." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I can't ask you to give him up again. You've been looking for him for so long." Dr. Chen smiled through his tears. "My father always said that Max had a purpose, that he was meant to help people. I think he's found his purpose with you." The arrangement they worked out was perfect. Max would stay with Sarah, serving as both her therapy dog and her companion. Dr. Chen would visit regularly, maintaining the connection to his father's memory while allowing Max to continue the work he seemed born to do. 6 months after the accident, Sarah had fully recovered and returned to her veterinary practice. But now she specialized in therapy animals, helping to train and place dogs with people who needed them most. Max became her partner in this work, demonstrating to other dogs how to provide comfort and support to humans in need. Every morning, Max would accompany Sarah to her clinic, where he would work with dogs who had been abandoned, abused, or neglected. He seemed to understand their trauma in a way that no human could, showing them that trust was possible again, that humans could be kind. The story of Max and Sarah spread throughout their community, then across the state, and eventually around the world. Videos of Max working with other rescue dogs went viral, inspiring legislation to protect stray animals and fund therapy dog programs. Sarah wrote a book about their experience, donating all proceeds to animal rescue organizations. But for Max, the real reward wasn't fame or recognition. It was the simple joy of waking up each morning knowing he had a purpose, a family, and a human who needed him as much as he needed her. He had gone from being a ghost haunting the margins of society to being a beacon of hope for both animals and humans alike. The accident that nearly killed Sarah had instead led to the discovery of Max's true calling. He wasn't just a pet or even a therapy dog. He was a bridge between two worlds, showing humans and animals alike that miracles don't always come in the form we expect. Sometimes they come with 4 legs, a clouded eye, and a heart big enough to save everyone they meet. On quiet evenings, Sarah would sit with Max on her porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple. She would run her fingers through his thick fur and remember that moment when she had given up hope, only to find it again in the form of a stray dog who refused to give up on her. "You know what the real miracle is?" she would whisper to Max. It's not that you saved me. It's that we found each other exactly when we both needed saving. Max would rest his head on her lap, his clouded eye reflecting the last light of day, and Sarah would know with absolute certainty that some things are meant to be. Some connections transcend circumstance, species, and even death itself. Dr. Chen's father had been right. Max did have a purpose, and that purpose was to show the world that even in our darkest moments, even when we feel most alone, love has a way of finding us when we need it most. The only video you need to believe in miracles isn't about supernatural events or impossible coincidences. It's about the extraordinary power of an ordinary dog who decided that one human's life was worth saving, and in doing so discovered that sometimes the hero and the rescued are the same person. Sometimes miracles walk on four legs and ask for nothing in return except the chance to love and be loved. If Max's story touched your heart the way it touched ours, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed an act of unexpected kindness from an animal? Or maybe you have your own rescue story to share. Stories like Max's remind us that heroism comes in all shapes and sizes, and sometimes the smallest acts of courage make the biggest difference. If you enjoyed this journey with Max and Sarah, consider subscribing to our channel for more heartwarming stories that celebrate the incredible bond between humans and animals. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful tales of hope, loyalty, and love. And who knows, your own story might inspire our next episode. Until next time, remember that even in our darkest moments, we all have the power to be someone's hero.